even a worldwide celebration.
Yes,
It is.
For nerds such as ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
who grew up and found a special place in our hearts for Star Wars. As embarrassing as that may be for some, I take pride in it. You know,
Say yo.
I have a lot
Yep.
of layers to me as a person, and one of those layers happens to be nerdism.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's pretty much my entire thing.
you know, it's just a day that the nerds can be nerds, and there's no shame in it. So.
Mm-mm. Besides Halloween.
Yeah, everybody gets to jump on the bandwagon for Halloween
Yeah, that's
with no shame.
But you know, I brought some stuff with me today, and it's amazing on, you know, I'll say this too, it's kind of amazing on what levels that you can find to connect with people on. And sci-fi, Star Wars, anything in the realm of nerd is one of those things that people from all different walks of life can connect on. And for me, it started probably in 1985. I was 4 or 5 years old, and my aunt came down with all of my mother's side of the family for Thanksgiving, because we always had Thanksgiving at my house. And she had a box, and inside that box was some hand-me-down vintage 1977 Star Wars toys. I had no idea what Star Wars was, but I knew I was fixing to get some new toys. And there was like a busted up X-Wing and a busted up TIE fighter and some figures. And to this day, I still have 2 of these figures that my aunt brought me as hand-me-down, known as Farm Boy Luke and R2-D2. But that's kind of where the whole world started for me, and my obsession with this sci-fi world. You know, I had no idea what it was. And my older cousin's like, oh yeah, there's space pirates and dogs that have crossbow lasers and spaceships and trash can robots.
Gonk droids are cool.
You know, for a 4 or 5 year old kid, I mean, that sounds pretty cool. So I think my dad ended up finding some Star Wars through the old TV guide on TV and recorded it on VHS with commercials for me. And I just kind of immersed myself in that space opera that George Lucas called it for, you know, the next 30 years of my life. So how'd you get into Star Wars?
Star Wars. So Jedi came out the year after I was born. So as early as I can remember, it was funny because my dad has always been a cinephile, and then I turned into a cinephile, and he of course grew up with all the westerns and stuff, and then the evolution into Star Trek and then Star Wars.
That's a dirty word.
No, it's not.
Star Trek?
Star Wars would not exist without Star Trek.
Dirty word.
You know what? We are only sitting here because of Lucille Ball.
That's true.
Like,
there's a whole backstory.
There's a whole backstory. Lucille Ball got Star Trek greenlit. Star Trek was popular. Star Trek got Star Wars greenlit. And then whenever Star Trek was declining, right before Star Wars, and it got greenlit, the success of Star Wars brought Star Trek back to the
history
main
isn't always
So,
pretty, but we'll leave it at that.
But being that he grew up always loving movies and so whenever I was a kid, he always had a collecting VHS and Betamax. From I think the first time I saw Star Wars, I was probably about 3 or 4 on Betamax. That was the wrong choice of format. But quickly switched over to VHS, and I remember watching everything just as soon as it was. As if my dad had a VHS of it, I would watch it. And you see some great movies, you see some bad movies, but Star Wars really just kind of sat with me. Just the overall space opera, like you said, and the hero's journey is just so well crafted in that original trilogy that it just has a wonderful growth with such amazing characters, and everybody is different in it, and they bring all of their differences together to form a team to overthrow what is at that time seen as a pure evil entity. We didn't have any words like Sith or any backstory, and we didn't even find out until the end of the second movie that Vader was even a former Jedi. So
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. 40 years later. But so all we had were these 3 movies And I think and this you're gonna laugh, but I think what really solidified and got me watching more Star Wars and having it as a regular repeat was Caravan of Courage.
Ewoks.
Wow.
The first Ewok
First
movie.
Ewok.
Yes. So
yes.
I remember sitting down as a family because back then, whenever I was very small, we would do family movie night and Caravan of Courage, and I was young and dumb and like 3 or 4 years old, so that was just cool, and it was fun. And then it got me watching all of Star Wars again and again and again, and it just stuck. And over the years, as we got more books, I mean, I remember I was reading, it's funny you have a copy of Heir to the Empire, because I read that before I could even understand what the hell it was saying. So I just kept going with that, kept reading, and would watch the movies regularly and read the books and get as much knowledge and as much information as I could. And that's pretty much why I come to you dressed in Jedi robes, because I'm a big old nerd.
Ron, how did you get into Star Wars?
Well, I was first introduced to it on VHS. We didn't have New Hope for a reason, but we had Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Well, most of Return of the Jedi. My mom edited the parts where any part was Slave Leia. That wasn't on there, but everything else was there for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I was young. I don't know. Later on, when I was growing up, I was a very avid reader. Still am. I read very quickly and stuff like that. And my mom get tired of me going to the bookstore. I'd be done with the books we just bought before we even get home. She said, "Okay, you're gonna go get something. One, it's gonna take you a second to read." And that book was this one, my first Star Wars, which was Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. So that's what started my love affair with the books. Read Rogue Squadron, all the books in between, long before Disney ever bought it. And I actually got the chance to meet Timothy Zahn on a couple occasions. So he actually signed this one right here. So paperback.
Nice.
And then second time I met him, I got him to sign a Black Series Thrawn figure here too.
And
so.
Thrawn is for people that don't know, who aren't in the deepest level of nerddom as we are, Timothy Zahn was the first guy to pretty much expand the universe of Star Wars in books, and he created Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is alive and well today in the new era of Star Wars.
Yeah, Ahsoka season 2.
Ahsoka season 2 we got, and we also got it during Rebels.
In Rebels, yep.
So Thrawn has become a very important. So I like the fact that with the Disney era, they are bringing back a lot of those characters that we love from the extended, what they're now calling the extended universe. Old guys like us pretty much still recognize the Thrawn trilogy as the real 7, 8, and 9.
Yep, that was the idea. Was if we were to do it, we'll go big.
And so I know a lot of us older fans were kind of, we'll say, butthurt that wasn't the story that we got. But the sequels do have some.
Let's talk about prequels. We'll just leave the sequels where they belong. Often,
okay. I mean, we can talk
in
about
the
all.
corner.
We can talk about all of it.
So I know the prequels got a ton of hate when they came out. I was a senior in high school, I guess, when the Phantom Menace came out, and we skipped school to go watch it. I never had a problem with the prequels. You know, Phantom Menace had some wonky stuff in it, but you know, it just fit.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say that the third movie and the sequels, or I'm sorry, the prequels, Revenge of the Sith, it's in probably my top 4 Star Wars movie content ranking thing.
When we're done here today, I'm gonna go watch it because
it's in the theater.
It's in the theater starting today.
20-year anniversary.
But yeah, what's your take on the prequels?
So this is my take on all Star Wars. Essentially, it's space wizards and laser swords.
Yeah, you got to.
If you can't just enjoy that, then something's wrong with you. It was never meant to be high. It was never meant to be this high level of film. It was never planned to be some Oscar. It was never planned to be a Schindler's List. Speaking of Qui-Gon, but it's just meant to be fun. But it does have a lot of deeper connotations. It does have a lot of deeper storytelling. I personally, and I was either a junior or senior in high school whenever Phantom Menace came out, and went to the midnight showing of 1 and 3. 2, I was stationed overseas, so I went to the first showing that I could see, but not the midnight showing. Which I have a funny story about the second one. But I loved Phantom Menace. Bought it the minute I could buy it on VHS. I remember whenever I couldn't sleep, whenever it first came out on DVD, I used to put the DVD player in, fast forward to the scene right before the pod races, because the humming of the engines would put me asleep.
It's your own your version of the ceiling fan or the box fan.
Yep, that's my box fan. But I always loved the prequels. The second one is definitely, in my opinion, the weakest of the three. Revenge of the Sith is a borderline masterpiece whenever it comes to storytelling and the descent. And that's the thing, is like they get on the acting and whatnot. And
well, some of that, because me and my wife were just talking the very thing the other day, is how Hayden Christensen back in the day got a lot of hate for his portrayal of Anakin. But if you look at a lot of their movies at the time, like Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire, there was very much a very specific thing. They wanted the protagonist to be dark, kind of emo, kind of things like that. And so it's very much a sign of the times. But like since then, he's become such beloved because when he came back to the silver screen, he said such painstaking time to see where his character had developed, where he had progressed, and he studied it and wanted to become that character. So like that's why it's interesting to see now. Like as many people used to dog on him back in the day, love him now because he kept with it and he actually loves the character. So it's interesting watching it from like, remember watching them, watching it now, just seeing the differences. I mean, some of it's also where you are at life at the time.
And
too.
also, like you want to hate on, they want to hate on Hayden Christensen or Jake Lloyd. Jake was at 8.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Oh no, the 8-year-old can't act.
He's 8.
He's 8. Whenever my kids were 8, I was just lucky to keep them from eating Play-Doh. But go back and look at 77. Look at A New Hope. Freaking Mark Hamill, love the man. Holy crap, that was it was sometimes
converters.
Yeah, he was a whiny brat. Oh no, my planet got destroyed, and I'm being a grown-up woman about it and figuring out how to freaking deal with the problem. The guy you met 3 days ago is dead. Oh no. Like, why am I comforting you? He was whiny. Luke was such a whiny character. So then, of course, his dad was whiny. Yeah. Of course, whenever his dad was falling to the dark side, he was whiny. And if you get into the extended universe of Star Wars, Luke went down a really gross path, just the same as his father did. But
Dark Empire.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's I think that the prequels, even at that time, got an unwarranted amount of hate. But what's funny is going to see the first showing of Episode 2 was at a base theater stationed in Japan, and the only seat left that I sat down next to Full Bird Colonel. And so we're both here. Mind you, I'm like this 21-year-old Lance Corporal eating my popcorn next to a Full Bird Colonel. And whenever that Yoda scene hit, like the entire place just erupted.
Rightfully
so. Like I'm jumping up in the air, throwing popcorn and hugging a Full Bird Colonel because of Star Wars. And it's just like, it didn't matter at that point. And the minute we were done, we were like, okay, cool. Thank you, sir.
That goes back to the point of everyone can connect on this, no matter what your walk of life is. What's another fun question? Favorite character?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
All universes, all movies, all content. You got 3 seconds, dude.
I would say Darth Revan for me. That's a little niche. This little video game is just because how people can relate to the character. I remember playing the Knights of the Old Republic game, how you get to make it your own and things like that, and you find out this is your character's backstory. So I always fell in love with it because like it feels like this person can be you. It's very relatable. You can make this character who you are. It has this big role into the Star Wars universe. Otherwise, my second one would be Boba Fett. So
Revan is a very good choice. Revan is very cool. I do like the fact that he does have that story from going to light to dark to back to light. He has a very good redemption and story arc. My favorite thing about him though was he was so strong in the Force that he carries 2 lightsabers, sure, but he normally only actually fights with one because he has such good Force abilities that he just literally sends the other one around him in a pinwheel to block anything. That you make it through the first one, you ain't beating him in a sword duel. Revan's a very cool. Boba Fett's also like, I understand the current love for Boba Fett, but if you didn't read the books and you didn't get into extended universe,
which I definitely did,
in the movies, other than the fact that he just looked cool, he was on the screen for almost no time, and he kind of sucked. He did one thing and then got murked. So but I do understand in future tense why Boba Fett would be a favorite.
What about you?
Ooh, so I would say my favorites. I think Darth Maul.
Ooh.
Darth Maul has a now. Whenever you get into same thing, go back to the prequels. He was just cool. I mean, we had never seen double-sided lightsabers. We had never seen a Zabrak in anything other than comics at that point. So if you didn't read the comics, you didn't know what the heck he was.
Or a bad guy with a lightsaber other than Darth Vader.
Yes, and you didn't see somebody that moved like that. And Ray Park, who played Darth Maul, wasn't Darth Maul's voice in the movie, though. They dubbed over his
super cool guy, by the way.
Ray Park is a super cool guy. He's made a couple of personal weird choices lately, but you know, we all make mistakes. But no, he's has great fan interaction if you ever get to meet him, ever see him at a show. But we'd never seen anything move that way. We had never seen anything do Star Wars that way. And it was so amazing to see this character that not only just looks cool, is just cool. And because he was so mysterious and he got 3 lines in the entire movie, we knew nothing about it. It wasn't until Clone Wars came along and Rebels and stuff like that, and the extended universe and the books, which he has 2 different origin stories, depending upon if you're pre-Disney or post-Disney.
Yep.
Both are very good and very tragic. And his whole concept was the Greek myth of Sisyphus. He no matter how high he climbs, I mean, the power of 2, he was number 2, and he gets cut down, and then he finds a way to get out of the Sarlacc pit, or not Sarlacc pit. That's Boba Fett. We just talked about that. Whenever he survives the trash on Naboo, he becomes the leader of Mandalore, the rightful leader of Mandalore.
By combat.
Yes. And then that gets taken away from him. So then he becomes the leader of the biggest crime syndicate in the entire galaxy. And where does he end up? He ends up on a desert planet hunting down Obi-Wan in his old age and realizes Obi-Wan's there for a reason. And he gets cut down by Obi-Wan one last time, which has extra meaning in it unto itself, because Maul has this epiphany that if Obi-Wan's there, because realize by this point, Darth Maul hates the Empire, he hates Obi-Wan, he hates the Jedi, he hates the Mandalorians, he hates everybody, because everything has just been built up and then taken away, and he's been thrown away like trash for so many times, that whenever he takes that moment that his greatest enemy is protecting something so valuable in secret, he didn't challenge Obi-Wan at the end to win. He challenged it so he could have a warrior's death and be done with his constant uphill battle. And no matter how high he got, he would always get cut back down. Darth Maul has one of the best overarching stories once you get into extended universe than anything.
So that's a perfect segue to my favorite character, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I know it sounds cliche, but one, Ewan McGregor is an amazing actor and really brought that character to life.
Oh, yeah.
But what I like about Obi-Wan is he's good at everything, but not the best at anything. And he still manages to survive everything. And he goes out on his terms for the greater good. And I think he's also the character that withstands the most adversity, the most loss throughout. If you follow the Clone Wars and throughout the prequels, you know, he lost his secret love affair. He lost his master. He lost his Padawan. He lost many things. He lost everything that he ever cared about, and he secluded himself, much like Yoda did, waiting for the right moment to fulfill his destiny, and that was get Luke in touch with the Force. But yeah, a little cliche, but Obi-Wan's my favorite. You know, you could beat the guy down and he never turned to the dark side. Second favorite would be Wedge Antilles, because he's the only fighter pilot with 2 Death Stars painted on the side of his X-Wing.
There you
go. Obi-Wan, while cliche, like, and who cares if it's cliche? Like,
True.
I will argue one of my favorite things, because I love Obi-Wan also. He's easily top 5 characters for me. The thing that I love about Obi-Wan is, and this is one of those moments that I'll say, is that when it came to the fall of the Jedi Order, he was one of about, during the prequel era, he was one of about 3 Jedi that were actually still good. By that point, they needed to be destroyed. They were not good. They were not a good council. They were not a good governing body. It's the duality. Everybody thinks of Sith being purely there to gain and control power, and the Jedi are, because we don't possess anything, we don't want that. But no, the council very much did want power. They very much wanted to keep that power, and Jedi like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were very much willing to question authority, where most of the other ones, I mean, I'm sorry, Yoda was evil. We can all love Yoda, but that dude, like, you do not live 900 plus years. I mean, we all joke about how Han Solo is Chewbacca's puppy, because humans live about the third of the length of the age of Wookiees. So instead of humans having dogs, Wookiees have humans. And you don't live 900 years. I mean, that's what, 13 generations? With a group of people that just disappear. You've seen entire regimes change. But whenever somebody comes to you and says, the Sith are here, they have returned, and you look at them and go, no, they haven't. It's like, oh, okay, dude. Like,
well, not just problems with the Sith. Like, you see with the backstory for Count Dooku, the anime series, whatever. You see all these different things that he begins to question things himself. Like, he's seeing these obvious social issues and other stuff. And the Jedi's like, oh, we're not going to do this. We're going to do this. In some ways, allow certain things to take place that are bad, in the sake of we can't be attached. It's like, we won't intervene, we won't do this, but we have the power to. So that's what I liked about his backstory, is how he fell to the dark side for the right reasons, as it were.
And that's, Dooku is also one of my favorite characters. Because, I mean, whenever he captured Obi-Wan, what did he say? He didn't tell him anything wrong. He told him the truth.
Kind of back to, like, kind of circle back to us, Revan. So that's the whole reason how Revan became Revan, was because the Republic is under attack by the Mandalorians. They were getting conquered world after world, fall to fall, and the Jedi weren't doing anything. It's like, well, we're just going to hold back because there might be something behind it. We're just going to wait and see. And Revan and his group jumped in and said, no, there are people dying. We need to do something. So they jump in to try to save the Republic against the wishes of the Jedi Council. So there became a schism. Because, again, he saw this issue. He wasn't willing just to sit back and watch it happen. He jumped in because we have the ability to do something, we should.
And that basically takes a lot of, whenever we get into deeper Star Wars lore and the concepts of Star Wars, and that's one of the things, is because we can all watch the same thing and see different things. And I honestly think that the first 2 trilogies have very connecting concepts of power and corruption. The last trilogy, I think, has a concept of chosen family and responsibility, and saying no to that power. Like I said, the sequel trilogy does have its merits. Definitely none of them are in my top 10 pieces of Star Wars media. If we remove the books, if you put the books and stuff in, they're like much deeper down on the list. But also, here's the thing, with a lot of the conversation, and you said you got rid of your Disney Plus. How many Star Wars movies are there? 12? 11? We got Solo, Rogue One. Those are the only 2 movies, right? We're about to get a man.
Are you going to count Caravan of Courage and
okay, sure.
Battle for Endor?
Hey, we
because that's what I was saying. Like, do we count those?
We only count those. We have 13 movies total.
Yep.
How many TV shows do we have at this point?
A lot.
A lot. So we're talking hundreds of hours of media made over the course of 45 years. It ain't all for you. It ain't all for you. And it ain't all for me. different age ranges, different groups of people, different people can see all of Star Wars, and something can connect to them. Something can give them that happy feeling. Something can make them think. Something can point at them and make them feel a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that you have to like every single show.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever it comes to a point where, because like I'll say, there are the things that Disney's done with the properties that I've enjoyed, and there's some things that I've really not enjoyed. I didn't feel like retconning certain characters were necessary. I didn't feel like, don't get me started on Republic Commando. That is the best story. That's like Omega Squad is, Karen Traviss got done very very wrong.
Yes, she did.
That is the best lore of Mandalore.
She made the language. She did this whole flushing out culture and everything like that. And then you see in the Clone Wars where you see the Mandalorians become more pacifistic, pretty much throws a lot of that out the window. And it's just kind of like, she's like, well, I guess I'm done here.
She was even a writer for Clone Wars. And then around season 3, whenever they brought in the Obi-Wan love triangle, which was a very good story. I'm not going to say it wasn't. They started being directly counteractive of what she had established as Mandalorian culture and lore. And she said fine, and didn't give them the last book, and they canceled her contract. So we never got to see how it wrapped up. It ended on a cliffhanger. She got done very dirty. Those characters that she built in that world that she built was beautiful.
Yes.
It really, really was. And that is the Mandalore in my head canon that is real, not necessary. Not saying that but because there's so much content, we can argue over all of the content.
Well, I think it's interesting how, like, in a post Clone Wars, post whatever, like you see with the Mandalorian, the TV show, how many things are brought back, like the Death Watch, because like historically, Death Watch were the bad guys versus the Super Commandos with Jango Fett, but now the Death Watch are kind of taking that spot in the new canon. But how they're just bringing back, like wearing the helmets, wearing the armor, bringing back those traditions, as you see with Din Djarin's faction versus Bo-Katan, which is a little bit more moderate. It's like, oh, you take off the helmet, it isn't devoted. But it's interesting how a lot of them have returned to their old ways, wearing the armor. It's a sense of pride. It's a sense of cultural pride for them to be this, to have this. This is what they're known for.
You said something that really I kind of want to circle back to and dive into, and it said that certain things can make you feel a certain way, get you in the feels.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 40s. You're in your 40s.
Yes.
Ron's a little younger, but we're kind of that age of they're calling it the divorced dad rock, where we're hearing stuff from the 90s that we listened to in high school in the early 2000s that, you know, kind of gets you in your feels a little bit, takes you back to remembering your childhood. So what's the Star Wars moment, any content that really like stirs you, like gets you in your feels, the divorced dad rock thing going on?
Okay. I would probably say that it's two moments. Duel of the Fates. And the final battle between Anakin and Obi. Those two moments. One, John Williams is a huge reason why they're so great. But when Duel of Fates hits, I remember it immediately brings me back to being in high school, and like, I'm sorry, but a classical song was #1 on TRL for like 6 weeks, and that was kind of cool. And it was nerd stuff, which was even cooler, and it kind of brought a lot of people that would make fun of you for watching Star Wars into, and it hadn't quite killed the nerdiness of Star Wars, but it definitely helped. When Carson Daly is having to introduce Star Wars stuff, it kind of gives us some legitimacy. But just those moments in that real, true, just launch of what a lightsaber battle would have looked like whenever these characters were at peak power. And then, of course, the death of Qui-Gon, spoiler alert, was very impactful because in that one movie, and we didn't get a lot of media with him, he became almost like Space Dad. Like, He's going to look out for you. He's going to teach you the ways. And nobody expected him to die at that time, unless you bought the CD the week before it came out. And then the final battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin had so much. We're old enough that we've had friends that we've had a bad breakup with those friends.
Yep.
And the conveying of somebody who is just completely part of you being ripped away. That entire last scene, from the moment that Padme walks off the ship to the moment that he walks away to Anakin screaming, "I hate you." At the beginning, you had two people that loved you more than anything in the world. And everyone's heart's broken. To the point where one of them dies.
Yep.
Those are the two moments in Star Wars that just, one builds my heart and the other one rips it out.
I'm going to go first on this one, Ron.
Go
ahead. For me, I think, so the first two seasons of The Mandalorian, like, stirred my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel like I was 10 years old again. And it just felt like Star Wars. And for me, I think it's 100% season finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian. When, spoiler alert, when Luke shows up.
My friends from high school was actually Luke.
Really?
Wow.
He was
That's
the
cool.
body double.
But I mean, you want to talk about a grown man sitting up in bed and getting misty-eyed from seeing their childhood hero return to the screen. I mean, you can make fun of me if you want. I don't care what people think of me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it really stirred something inside of me that made me feel like a kid again. And I can watch that scene over and over and over and over and still get goosebumps. And I think it all boils down to, as we get older, the things that we've connected to when we were young, when those get tapped into, it just really stirs your emotions. And that's got to be it for me, was watching Luke Skywalker return to the screen after 30 some odd years, and getting to be the Luke Skywalker that we knew he turned into in the books, in the expanded universe, and seeing him just wreck. And that was amazing for me.
That is,
Yeah.
That definitely was a very.
That right there is probably that's mine as well. We'll watch it too, and because there's parallels between both the scenes. One is the one in the Mandalorian season finale where he's taking down the Dark Troopers, but also one in Rogue One where you see Darth Vader boarding the ship.
Vader shows up
and
and wrecks.
you just put those two side by side, like father and son. You just see just how close, like, he is his father's son. There's no doubt about it. The way he takes it down, the way he did it, he's reached that height of where he was at, the Luke that we were wanting to. We also see the Vader that we were always wanting to see too. So those two scenes, one in Rogue One and Mandalorian, those were two, for sure.
You get one piece of Star Wars content to take with you to a desert island and watch over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Ron, what's your content?
Return of the Jedi, straight up.
Revenge of the Sith.
Rogue One.
Space Vietnam.
Space Vietnam.
Yep. What I liked about Rogue One is because it was different as execution. We've seen
it was
the
gritty.
Spacers, yeah,
it was gritty.
Yeah.
I like whenever they take something we're so familiar with and they give us a different view, like Visions. Was great.
Yes.
I like whenever different types of art get something, because we all have seen that, like, Star Wars has that Star Wars sheen. So taking the world and throwing it, like, that's one of the things that I do like. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched Andor, but the few clips that I've seen of it, which it is high on my list, I'm gonna get caught up. But we don't just see the Star Wars sheen, we see the underbelly. Like, even whenever you'd see the underbelly in the movies, like if you go back and you watch episode 2, whenever they're in the underworld of Coruscant, it's still shiny.
Very shiny.
But whenever you see Andor, it's not. It's two very different versions of cinematography, because even though the older films have different cinematographers for some of them, we still got that same view. It was almost like they were trying to just recreate one thing. So whenever you have Rogue One or Andor, not trying to recreate that Star Wars sheen, but bring you to the world in a different way, because it is a very diverse world. So why does everything have the same look to it?
Mm-hmm.
So seeing a different look of Star Wars makes me very happy.
See, on the kind of the flip side for me on that, what I really like about Rogue One is kind of mimicking what I said about Luke Skywalker returning, the fan service. I like fan service. And
then you didn't like Episode 9?
Yeah. You see Red Squadron, you see Red Leader, you see, they talk about Harris Andula, you see the Ghost, you see Mon Calamari, you see all the things that take me back to my childhood. And that was my number one draw to Rogue One. And it was an original story on top of that. But yeah, man, anything that sucks me back to my childhood and makes me feel like 10 years old again, I'm all about it.
I liked Rogue One because the only thing that we had ever heard in most forms of media about Episode 4 at the beginning was many Bothans died to bring you these plans. And the fact that it took them 40 years to show us how all them Bothans died to bring us those plans was very cool. So we get that backstory, and very much I love the contrast between Luke and Vader at that peak point of their power. Very awesome.
Ron?
What do I like?
I've made up all the questions. It's your turn. Someone come up with another question.
Somebody come up with
some podcast content.
Okay. Well, I'll address the elf in the room that's been sitting on the table. So I didn't get a chance to earlier when I was doing this, but one thing I liked about Star Wars too is how many different forms and media it could take on, the different shapes and stuff like that. Like from the action figures to the books to video games, Legos. I'm a connoisseur of all the above, from Black Series to Legos, whatever. So this right here was actually based off of the Star Wars X-Wing game. There was a red TIE Defender, the Countess. I saw it once I started playing the game and stuff like that. I was like, I got to build this. So hence here it is. So
it's very cool.
Yeah, but yes, this is Lego.
I played all the Star Wars video games from Super Nintendo.
Yes,
the trilogy. When I got a computer, I started playing X-Wing, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance. Like I played them all. I don't really play video games much anymore because I don't have time. But
got all the consoles, none of the time.
I think that's right. My first real Star Wars game was Rogue Squadron N64. I backtracked the other ones too, but I just loved again jumping. I was one of those where my parents had promised me if I had done something like all A's for the semester, they'll give me a game console, and I did. And I remember the first couple of days I just stayed up just playing that thing, really digging into it.
Probably Super Star Wars, I think, was my first one. However, we can never forget the masterpiece that was Masters of Terrasakai.
Unfamiliar.
So on the PS1, there was a very janky fighting game called Masters of Terrasakai. And the translation was terrible. The stories were nonsensical. And for some reason, a Wookiee bowcaster was just as strong as a lightsaber, if not stronger at times. Horrible game. It added nothing to that. That was a backhanded comment. But sorry that you didn't PS1 that badly.
I did not. I don't even think I had a PS1. I had a PS2 and an Xbox. But
yeah,
I've heard the stories of Terrasakai. I was like,
it's bad. There's a few YouTube videos on that really just accentuate the badness of it.
Yes.
There's a page called Worst Fighting Game where he ranks terrible fighting games. That one's in it. Look up that episode. It's fun.
How does it rank compared to karate on Nintendo?
Ooh,
worse.
Wow,
that's bad.
Yeah, it's pretty ungood. Whenever I say all Star Wars media is good in some way, that one is not.
Except.
Yes. I'm like, I won't even argue with a person who likes episode 9. But I will argue with you if you tell me that that's a good game.
Oh no.
No. That's
Well, I'm sure someone from a certain point of view could
You know,
make an argument.
so this is one of my things, and I've worked in retail for a while. I ran GameStops for a good long while, and I've run my comic shop for a good long while. And I learned something whenever I was selling games. No matter how bad the game, it's somebody's favorite game. Same with books, same with movies. I know some people with some very hot takes on things that are just plain hot garbage. But I am confident that if you put literally any other game in front of somebody, they'll play it before they play that game. Or they'll play that game out of curiosity and then immediately play something else.
So you're the owner of Geek Out, correct?
I'm the COO.
COO.
Yes.
And you guys do card games, tabletop games, like the whole shebang, right?
Yes.
So I used to be an X-Wing player.
Okay.
Played a lot of X-Wing, had a lot of the pieces. What happened to that?
So what happened essentially with X-Wing is so version 1, like most games, are okay. Then, and a lot of people liked it, and they upgraded to version 2, which a lot more people liked. It was much more player friendly, much easier to get into. But then they did this version 2.5
where you could use the models, but you had to buy new cards.
Essentially. So that was version 1 to version 2. You had to update your cards, update your dials, stuff like that. Not a huge deal. They had upgrade kits, or everything past a certain point came with the new stuff. So the version 1 to version 2 actually got more people into it because it streamlined and tightened up the game. Then they did 2.5, where it went from being a dogfight game to a lot of objective-based things, and a lot of people didn't really like that. And they overcomplicated something that was really fun to play. I still have 2 entire fleets of ships, CIS and Empire, just because I like the CIS because Darth Maul is my favorite character, so he flies CIS, and the Empire ships are just the coolest. I mean, I like, they're the bad guys, but they have the coolest ships. But essentially,
this is my current favorite X-Wing ship. Is this TIE Defender?
TIE Defenders are wicked awesome.
So, do they still support the game, or is it done?
Last year they announced they're ending support for it. This year there is a big national tournament that will end support completely. Essentially, they basically just alienated so much of their fan base by with certain changes to the game.
Warhammer Fantasy. Go ahead.
Yep, and that's a whole different bag. Which they did the same thing with Armada. Legion is still going pretty strong.
So Armada's done too.
Yes, Armada and X-Wing are done. They are considering retooling and relaunching at a later date, but as for right now, those games are over. Legion is still very strong. They came out with Shatterpoint, which is a skirmish version of Legion, essentially, which we carry the core sets at my stores, but we stopped carrying all the other things. They came about it with a very bad marketing. They made it Clone Wars centric at launch, but the artwork they used for it was very childlike, and it's not a children's game. It was very cartoony, and I think that they just went the wrong avenue of approach.
I was always curious what the difference between Legion and Shadow, because I see them side by side.
Okay.
It's like, yeah.
So Legion, you have a full-blown, massive, essentially army.
Pay attention, gaming nerds.
Yeah, there you go. Shatterpoint is primarily played with squads. So if you're familiar with your tabletop war games, if you're familiar with Warhammer, you have your Warhammer 40K, and then you have Warhammer Fantasy, and then you have Kill Team or Warpath, I think, or Warcry. Warcry. So it's essentially Legion is the big version. Shatterpoint is the small but what's funny is they kind of killed themselves because they added new rules where you could play an alternate game type of Legion that just makes it Shatterpoint.
Mm.
But I will say Shatterpoint models are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got nice models, but the gameplay is too similar to other things that are out there, and their marketing for it was just atrocious.
I don't remember a
Um,
lot of marketing. I just remember seeing more stuff when I show up in stores. Like, what's this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I live in the gaming and comic
Mhm.
world, so I see all the marketing, and
Mhm.
whenever I see something and go, that's not going to sell, um, you made it look like a kid's game
Mm-hmm.
that's made for people 10 years older than the demographic that you're marketing to, that you
Mhm.
made your art for. That's not saying the art's bad, it's just the wrong target demographic.
Yeah.
So I think if we get repackaged, which they're doing repackages on Legion, uh, making it a little bit shinier. But yeah, but that's what happened to X-Wing and Armada. Now I will say, whenever it comes to games, and you can get the game and play it at my store, is Star Wars Unlimited
Mhm.
is a new TCG, came out last year. It is actually a whole lot of fun.
And that stands for trading card game.
Trading card game.
Yes.
Yes. TCGs are trading card games. Most people are familiar with Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh.
I did Lord of the Rings back in the day.
Lord of the Rings was a solid one until
Mhm.
they killed that one too.
Yeah.
And Star Wars Unlimited is a very fun. You have leaders and bases, and your goal is to take out the other leader's base, and you have a bunch of support cards, and they range from all the different characters. So you can have you could have a Boba Fett deck, which the first Boba Fett decks got
Would
banned.
that be like a good father-son game? You know,
Very
the
much so.
40-year-old dads looking to connect with their son on something and
Mhm.
come in
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
learn to play that together.
So games like something like Magic the Gathering can be complicated to get into. But the great thing about Star Wars Unlimited, since it is relatively new, it doesn't have a lot of these extra convoluted rules that Magic took 30 years to build. So if you want to get into a nice, fun TCG, Star Wars Unlimited is very easy to pick up. The starter decks that are available for it are very reasonably priced and very playable. And once you get the handle of the mechanics, building a deck is not very difficult. And you can build a deck around almost any character that you want. Every set that they've come out with, and they've come out with 3 sets, is based around a certain era of Star Wars or a certain type or a certain faction. Hopefully we'll start getting Old Republic, but right now, if you wanted a Boba Fett deck, there's 3 different Boba Fett leader cards, so you can play multiple different styles.
Mhm.
I think that tabletop gaming is really a untapped resource for parents trying to get their kids away from the cell phones, away from the iPads, and do something else besides electronics.
It is. I will say that a lot of old nerds like myself know to use it and are very, very open to use it. That's why I like the fact that we can hate on the Disney era of Star Wars all day long, but they've got the marketing money to make things work and to get it in front of people's faces. So Star Wars Unlimited had a very good marketing push. Even outside of just the general gaming communities. But Star Wars Unlimited, the 2 best things I would say if you want something to play with your kids and sit down, where pretty much anybody above the age of 8 or 9, as long as they can read, that Star Wars Unlimited and Disney Lorcana are 2 very, very good games that you can sit
My
down.
wife's into that one.
Disney Lorcana,
Yeah.
like I will say, whenever we have groups, and this past Easter we had a smaller group because it was Easter. We had a half dozen people, but everybody was father-son combos. Whenever we have those bigger groups, those 20 people, a lot of the times it's families that they all build their own decks. They all pick their characters that they want to build a deck around, and they build it. My Disney Lorcana deck is Ratigan from Great Mouse Detective, because it's I love Vincent Price. That's it. It's only because I love Vincent Price. The deck isn't even. I mean, the deck is pretty solid. I had one of my friends build it for me, but Disney Lorcana and Star Wars Unlimited are 2 very good family-friendly games that are not hard to get into. They're both about a year old, so there's not so much extra things that you have to worry about. And they're they're very introduction to TCG friendly.
And there's plenty of support life left.
Yes, there is. I know that for Star Wars Unlimited, they have already designed and set tentative dates for sets going through 2027. And every about 3 months, we get some kind of announcement on what's coming next. Jump to Lightspeed, where they just added a bunch of new pilots in, just came out about 2 months ago. Late July, I believe we get our next set. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but we've had Twilight of the Republic, so you've had some great Clone Wars card. You could build a Rebels team if you wanted to. We've had great Mandalorian cards. So you can literally at this point, everything except Old Republic, if you name a character, you can probably build a deck around him, even including Thrawn.
And I think it's really important to point out too that if you're intimidated by learning how to do this, what really sucked me into Geek Out, and this was prior Old Time Geek Out, but your staff is more than willing to sit down and teach you how to play the game.
Oh yeah. So we have a staff. Our staff is everybody is hired. Whenever everybody's hired and we go through the interview, one of the interview processes is very much personality based, and we very much look at, can these people interact with people and help them play a game and help them pick their next obsession, and everybody kind of has a specialty.
Just like cops.
Yep.
Exactly. Just like cops, which I was one for over a decade. So, but and I was patrol, and I'm kind of a general access nerd, so kind of matches up. I deal with comics and books and trading cards and Warhammer and a little bit of collectibles. I deal in a little bit of everything, but we have one of our employees. You could hand her a stack of Pokemon cards, and she could pull out the 3 that are worth money in 20 seconds. Wow. I have employees that are experts in manga, experts in specific TCGs, comic book experts. So everybody has their kind of niche like focus, but everybody can help you with anything. And we also have a great group of customers, especially the regulars. I'll tell you that if you wanted to learn how to play Magic the Gathering, you could walk into the store almost at any time of the day, almost any day, and somebody, whether it be an employee or one of our great regular customers, will sit you down and teach you how to play. And that's also true for Star Wars Unlimited, and Disney Lorcana also has a very solid fan base with regulars.
Some of our dispatchers are some of y'all's regulars for Lorcana. They're big time into it.
Yeah. So it's. And that was always our plan and always our goal at Geek Out, was to give everybody a place where they can come in and find something fun. And if they don't know what they want, then we ask open-ended questions. We do the good retail game, and the good steps in all the sales books of, okay, well, what do you like? What's your favorite thing? How can we pair you up with something? And find something that you will like, so that we can put it in your hands and show you to have fun. And if it's something that you are intimidated by, like Magic the Gathering or Star Wars Unlimited or Warhammer, somebody on staff or somebody who's a regular can absolutely help you get into it and guide you in the right way. And we'll also, a lot of the times, like I said, we ask questions and we figure out because I've had people come in and want to play Warhammer, and whenever we have a conversation, we come really close. We come really fast to the determination of, no, you don't. And Warhammer is an expensive investment. I'm not going to sell you a $200 box of plastic if that's not the right thing for you. I'd much rather sell you a $40 D&D book so that you can go that direction. And that in turn is going to cause you to want to come back and get my advice on what else I've got. Warhammer is a great game. I'm not singling Warhammer out. We're saying it's bad. It is just probably the most expensive hobby game.
And it's a lot. It's a lot.
And it is a lot because you've got to buy your army, build your army, paint your army, buy a textbook, buy a second textbook based on the army that you're playing. And then
that's
you have
not
to
even
learn
getting
all
into
those
the
things.
lore.
Oh no, there's literally there's almost as many Warhammer books as there are Star Wars books.
Well, your staff has always been great to us when we
Absolutely.
go in. The past couple of May the 4th, Ron and I have come down and dressed up in our uber ultra adult money Star Wars costumes.
Which we love it.
I'm the Mandalorian. Ron is Darth Vader,
Mhm.
and we've done pictures down there with a lot of citizens and customers and staff, and it's just always a joy to come down there and talk to you guys.
We appreciate it. We really do like supporting our city. We really love that our city supports us, and we love supporting our city. Joni and Colin do very good jobs reaching out to us, telling us what's going on with Old Town, telling us what's going on with the city, what we can do to help events, and they come to us, and we go to them whenever we have some events that we need a little bit of help with, like things like y'all showing up on May the 4th. So we really enjoy the support of the city, and we enjoy giving our support to the city as much as possible.
We appreciate you coming and chatting with us today about all things nerdy. I'm sure the citizens of Burleson are going to have a good time laughing and cutting up with us and making fun of us for being nerds, but
Oh,
we
hey,
are who we are.
Yep.
being nerd. I mean, I have a business called Geek Out. What do you expect from me?
Mhm.
Exactly.
But before we wrap it up, I did want to say that on May the 3rd is Free Comic Book Day. Both of our locations, our Burleson location and our Mansfield location, will have artists, designers, artists, designers, game creators, all are going to be there signing autographs. We've got a couple of actual Marvel and DC artists coming in.
Cool.
We will have costume contests, free comic books.
And what day of the week is that?
It's going to be Saturday. It's going to be Saturday, May 3rd. So the day before May the 4th. But we'll be doing events all day long. We'll have free goodies for the kids and adults. Just a idea to make sure that helping literacy in the world, and that comics are for everyone, just the same way as Star Wars is for everyone.
For sure.
And going back to my original point of not all of it's for you, but something is. And that's the cool part about Star Wars and the cool part about comics.
Yeah.
But I appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate y'all inviting me to come talk Star Wars.
For
with you.
sure.
Yep.
We can do it with Marvel. We can do it with about anything.
I could stay here all night and talk about anything. Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
We could do what else could we do? Transformers.
Mhm.
Oh, my son is a Transformers professor.
I still have all my old metal Transformer toys from the 80s.
Very cool.
I kept all my toys in pristine condition. I was just that kind of kid.
My son's 21 now, and ever since he saw the Transformers movie, the original Transformers movie,
Mhm.
whenever he was like 3, he's been obsessed with Transformers. So if there was a college course, he could teach it. It's insane.
There's a Tolkien college course you could take.
There is
Mhm.
a Tolkien college course that you can take.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yes,
we'll
it
all
has.
see each other again. Ron,
Yep.
I'll see you tomorrow, but we'll see each other again.
Yep.
May the force be with you.
May the fourth be with you.